we're doing Cycle 1, Week 16 Science. There are 2 experiments for this week. The first one is from the Van Cleese book, 130 Stretch. So your materials that you're going to need are balloons, permanent markers from your art bins. They're going to be in the older 2 classes, so we're going to have to split those up because they're not in our kid bin. So please find those and bring them with you. And then I will have for you the book, The Mitten by Jan Brett. And because that will go along with our experiment. If you want to use it, you can. If you have extra time, if not, that's fine. On here I put a website for more information about what we're doing and why we're doing it for this stretch experiment. So I will also, these are the balloons given with the science experiment. I will have for you balloons with faces on them because that will also do an experiment. That will help with our experiment. But our idea is that when we, so you're going to take the balloon, and this is where it gets a little bit tricky. If you have one person kind of lay out a balloon like this, and the other person will write a box on it, and there's a picture on here, but they're gonna write a box, and then they're gonna draw it into thirds. I'm gonna write it on here. Then they're gonna put it in thirds, and then they're gonna color the outside 2/3 of the box. And what that's gonna do is then they're gonna blow up the balloon halfway and they're gonna deflate it. And the square for the most part will be the same. Then they're gonna blow it up all the way, and you can either tie it off at that point or you can just look at it. And then, or I guess don't tie it off, I'm sorry, at that point. And then deflate it. And what's gonna happen is this balloon is going to be bigger originally than it was. And what you're looking at is just how when something stretches, it can't go back to its original shape. And so the tutor will not blow up their balloon, the kids will, or you can do it opposite. In my class, I'm gonna do it opposite. I'm gonna let all the kids not blow up their balloons for the first one, and then I will blow up mine, and then if we have time at the end. So the reason that I used the reference of the mitten, the book, is because all of these animals get into this mitten, and then at the end, the little boy finds the mitten, and his original one is this big, and his one that all the animals fit into was that big. So the same idea of the stretch, and nothing will go back. So that was the experiment. I kind of jumped ahead, but so we have learned about the different, well, I don't know if we learn about it or have learned about it. We will learn about it if we haven't, but the rock cycle, and so the different types of rock. So you can show this handout, and you can talk about the different types of rock and what, like, different forms that they're in, just to show them. And then we're talking about tension force, and so we're going to talk about what that is and why that is, and essentially just why the balloon won't, when it gets blown up too big, why it won't go back to itself, to its original size. I think that's it for that one. Okay, and then our second one is a little bit shorter, and this is 132 from Van Cleese, and it's called Spurt. And all you need is, in your science bin, there is a full tube of toothpaste. You're gonna need to empty out half of it so you can move the toothpaste around. So about half is fine. I would also recommend bring any toothpaste tubes that you have from home. The more for the experiment, the better. I think at least 4 or 5 would be fun, so then most kids can hold one and watch what you're doing. So in this one, we're learning about magma and how and why it moves, and so in volcanoes. So we're going to talk about what we've learned, the different types of volcanoes, the different parts of a volcano, and then we need to figure out what magma is, how it moves, where does it go. And we're going to show this handout. When we talk about magma, so magma goes in 3 places. It has dikes, sills, and lithocloth. Probably pronouncing that wrong. Is that right? I'm not. The science person over there says I didn't. So in the picture will show you what that is, and you can read about like what they mean. But we're talking about how magma moves under the Earth's surface and how that causes our earthquakes and our volcanoes. And then this is another handout to show about what happens to that magma that moves under the Earth. So essentially what the toothpaste tube is doing is when you squeeze it on one end, it's gonna go to the other end. And you go, and it moves. And that's all you're doing. You're just showing that the magma has to move from the force that it's getting pushed. It has to be pushed elsewhere. And if that's under the Earth and there's something on top of it, that on top of it is also going to move. I think that's about it.